with?
For me personally, no. If you want to go first, Max, I'll let you. But for me personally, I'm not giving the Lakers a pass. Not based off of what I saw last night. Max, if you want to go first, go ahead, because I got a lot to say. But go ahead, Max.
Well, I would just say, it makes no difference to me. If you want to respond to it, then the answer is yes, of course they get a pass. Of course they get a pass because this team was constructed top heavy. They don't have a big three, they got a big two. Not just a big two, a giant two, an MVP two, an historically great two. But what that means is the rest of the roster is going to be a little thinner than some other rosters. Now, I know you look at when LeBron and AD are there, they don't look thin. They have a lot of guys doing a lot of things, but the presence of those two enable those guys to do those things. You know who else isn't there? Dennis Schroeder. And the thing about any team is you need several players who can do the following. They have to be able to get you into your offense and go get their own shot. If they can't create that way in those two ways combined, really, you got a problem. No team has no one like that in their offense. They wouldn't be able to play in the league. The Lakers really have two guys like that in the offense, LeBron and Schroeder. Why is LeBron playing so many minutes? Because without Schroeder, they got one guy, and now they don't have AD. So all those complementary pieces, it's not the same. You know, I love Talen Horton-Tucker, and he can create for himself, but is he going to really create for others? Everyone else is a role player to one degree or another, to one degree of effectiveness or another in their role, but they're role players. And so you really look at LeBron and a bunch of role players in a long season without the only other guy who can create and get you into the offense, without the other big two on his prime partner on a top-heavy team, and then they run into a buzzsaw. The Jazz are the hottest team in the league, playing the most perfect basketball in the league, and the Lakers are on the road. Yeah, they get a pass for last night.
I can't give them a pass, Max Kellerman, because I'm just looking at the manner in which they got destroyed. And we're going to get into the Utah Jazz a little bit later, but I will say this to America. The Utah Jazz have hit 53 pointers in the last two games. No team in NBA history, not even the Golden State Warriors, have done that. This team is scary. And I'm not going to lie, Max, I didn't see it. You know, we just had this conversation a couple of weeks ago when you were raving about the Utah Jazz. I didn't see it. I'm looking at Donovan Mitchell, and I said, I got to see it to believe it. I got to see it to believe it. I got to see it to believe it. And I look at the Lakers last night, and the reason why I don't give them a pass, it's not just because the Jazz were making shots. It's how little resistance they posed. You know what? You can struggle without Anthony Davis and Dennis Schroeder offensively. What's the excuse defensively? This is a Frank Vogel defensively coached team. Frank Vogel knows a thing or two about coaching defense. That's why he got the head coaching job to begin with, even though he wasn't the Lakers' first choice, because of the job that he did in Indiana all of those years when they were trying to compete for an Eastern Conference crown against LeBron James and Dwayne Wade's Miami Heat. But in the end, I look at the Los Angeles Lakers. Just because Anthony Davis and Dennis Schroeder's not there doesn't mean that you're supposed to forget how to play defense. Stay in front of your man. Stay with your man. Not letting everybody have a damn layup line, for crying out loud, or get wide open 3-point shots. Where's the defensive intensity? Where's the pride? Where's the pride? And I'm not talking about LeBron James. I'm not talking about him at all, because the man shows up. And let's give credit where credit is due. He just didn't have any help. I'm looking at everybody else in between. I'm looking at a Morris. I'm looking at a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I'm looking at an Alex Caruso. I'm looking at all of these other guys. I'm just saying, defense for the most part is about effort. And when the Jazz show up, I understand that Rudy Gobert is a force. I understand that Donovan Mitchell is a stud. Mike Conley Jr. didn't miss a shot in the first half. Okay? And I'm just looking at them right now. At halftime, the Utah Jazz had went 6 quarters hitting 43 threes. I understand that's a problem until I'm looking and I'm saying, damn, how much more wide open can they be? Now, there's a lot that goes into that. And again, we'll get into that when we get into the subject on the Utah Jazz. But in the end, I'm going to look at the Los Angeles Lakers. You're champions. And yes, a regular season game, and I'm not going to overblow it. I'm simply talking about, if you know you don't have Anthony Davis, and you know you don't have Dennis Schroeder, and Rajon Rondo is no longer there, and Dwight Howard is no longer there, and JaVale McGee is no longer there, I'm going to blame one or two things. I'm going to blame effort, or I'm going to blame Rob Pelinka. Because you can't lose both of McGee and Dwight Howard, even though Montrezl Harrell is what you added to the mix. You can't. It's either effort or it's the fact that those dudes ain't there and you have no rim protection whatsoever. It's one or the other. But either way you slice it, as good as Utah is and as good as they look, it's about the Lakers too. And as we sit here and talk about the Lakers, Max, that's what I walk away looking at. Effort or, you let two bigs get away that you shouldn't have let get away.
Well, it's fair to say, hey, guys, you got to step up. KCP, Caruso, everybody, you got to step up, especially with also in Schroeder's absence. The fact is they're missing two of their three best players. If you had to take a third best player on the team, certainly a third most important player, to me it's Schroeder. They don't have AD and they don't have Schroeder. That's one. Two, remember when I said there's a silver lining in AD's injury provided he comes back as AD? Because you're right when you say he better come back as AD. They ain't going to beat the Nets. That's right. But maybe not the Jazz. But provided he comes back as AD, what'd I say? LeBron in Cleveland and in Miami, in recent years, last 6 or 7 years, early in the season, he's trying to figure out what he needs to do to lead a group of guys to the promised land, because he's in the finals every year. So he always figures it out. But early on, sometimes we'll see, remember back in the day, the Heat don't have a great record. The Cavs don't have a great record because he's figuring it out. He needs to know who I can rely on, like who can LeBron rely on? What positions does he need to put them in so if they fail at one thing, they can succeed at another? And he usually takes it's an incubation period, basically, with LeBron. I think we're also seeing that. There's some fatigue, yes. You're right, some guys need a little more effort would be nice. But really, it's AD's not there, and Schroeder's not there, and LeBron's trying to figure the rest of these guys out. And they're on the road. They ran into a buzzsaw. Stephen A., they get a pass from me.
Like I said, I'm never going to give anybody pass when I'm questioning your effort. When I'm questioning your effort, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, see, offense is about skill. It's not just about effort. It's about talent/skill. That's what it's about. Defense primarily is about effort, particularly now. If Donovan Mitchell had exploded for 50 points, Max Kellerman, we have a different discussion here. He's just a stud, and there's nothing you can do about it. But he's got 18. Mike Conley's got 16 to 18. Bogdanovich got 15. You know what I'm saying? They hit about 23 threes, and, just spreading the ball around, people wide open, standing in the corner, taking pictures, calling their girls before they take a three-point shot and what have you. It's like, damn, where you at? Did you even show up to Utah? Did you not know this was going to be a primetime game? Nationally televised. You didn't know? You didn't see it coming? You got to show up. Got to show up.
And Stephen A., I'm looking at this Jazz. I'm looking at the Jazz schedule right now. Let me just reel off some of the names, because the only team they lost to recently were the Clippers, and that was the Clippers at full force for the first time in forever, right? Okay, and that was a close game after they beaten the Clippers. So the Jazz beat the Celtics, beat the Bucks, beat the Heat, who are resurgent right now, beat the Sixers, the best team in the East,
lost to
beat the Clippers before they lost to them, and they beat them by a wider margin than they lost to them, destroyed the Hornets, and then just destroyed the Lakers. In other words, this is a ridiculously hot team. You said it yourself. 53s in 2 games. This didn't all come against the Lakers. They just ran into a buzzsaw at the worst possible time.
All right, so let's go there, because the Jazz are the best team in the NBA right now, according to their record. They've won 22 of their last 24. Max, do you believe that they're the best team in the NBA at this moment?
Right now, yes, they're the best team in the NBA, and they're playing the best basketball. They've replaced the Lakers since AD went down. Remember, not that long ago, I kept saying it. The Lakers are the only team in the league absolutely elite on offense and defense. You heard Stephen A. just now. They ain't elite on defense right now, let alone on offense. You know who they've been replaced by? The Utah Jazz. Top 5 offensive and defensive efficiency. No one else in the NBA is. Now, Markieff Morris is right. The playoffs are a different story. You want to ask me if they beat a full-strength Lakers in the playoffs? Maybe, but I favor the Lakers. A full-strength Clippers in the playoffs? Maybe. A full-strength Nets in the finals? Different story. Sixers? I don't know. But I can tell you this. Right now, Stephen A., the comparisons to the great Spurs teams are apt. They're right. When I look at the construction of this team, Look at the roster, Stephen A. Not only are they playing crazy, unselfish basketball, moving the ball, passing up good shots for great ones. Look at the roster construction. Remember how I always talk about, and you say, yup, Larry Brown used to say that Chris Paul must be Larry Brown's fantasy of a perfect point guard, right? Conley is some version of that. Right? He's kind of the perfect point guard. Donovan Mitchell is a star who, under pressure, is a superstar. And Joe Ingles was starting for them not all that long ago, and he is a good offensive player who's versatile on offense and a good enough defensive player. But he's been swapped out for Royce O'Neal and on this version of the Jazz. And Royce O'Neal's the opposite. He's a good offensive player. He can hit shots. He's a willing passer who's a great versatile defensive player, right? So everywhere you look, you got a guy, yup, I want that guy. The Bogdanovich, obviously, on offense. And then Gobert is a useful offensive player who's a great defensive player. That's just the starting five. Look at the veterans they have coming off their bench now. I mentioned Ingles. Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson has entered his prime now. He always had promise. He was aggressive, but he was like a good player on bad teams. And obviously a guy like that wants to start and be a star. He's 28 years old. His skills are as complete as they're ever going to be, it seems to me, in terms of also his physical prime. And the dude has accepted that as a sixth man, with the knowledge he now has, he's shooting 8-9 threes a game and hitting like 40% of them. Stephen A., guys like that off the bench, this team is an extremely well-coached team and a well-oiled machine on both sides of the floor. They're the best team right now.
That's what I was actually waiting for you to get to that last part, because that is the part. And I just want to throw off some names because I've never done this in the history of First Take. I've never done this. I want to read off the names of Utah's coaching staff. Alex Jensen, Mike Wells, Lamar Skeeter, Vince LaGarza, Sergey Oliva. Dell Demps, the former GM in New Orleans, is now an assistant coach with Utah. And Keyon Dooling, just a certified life coach. This brother is a special brother, really, really good brother, got a great head on his shoulders and really does a lot of stuff in just getting guys mentally prepared to perform. Keyon Dooling was one of those dudes with the NBPA and all of that stuff. He's a special person, got a lot of love and respect for him. And it's great that they have him on their staff as well, because he can help any staff in the NBA. And all of this is led by head coach Quinn Snyder, who was a college coach. I just want to make sure that I state this for the record. This man is an exceptional coach, and their staff is doing an exceptional job. This might be the best staff in basketball, because every single player, tell me one player that looks worse since it's under their stewardship. One player. There's no one that looks worse. Everybody looks better. And that's what you're seeing here. I'm looking at a guy like Royce O'Neal. Why does he matter? Because he's your perimeter defender. You got Rudy Gobert. He's an elite defender in the post, two-time defensive player of the year. Probably going to win it again this year. I mean, the dude is formidable. So you got defense on the perimeter. You got defense in the interior. And as a result of that, they're going to create their own opportunities because they're limiting you to one shot. They're forcing turnovers. They're never shy with effort. Ever. We're talking about the Lakers. We're talking about Boston and others. Effort. We never say that about Utah. Effort, effort, effort. And so we know we got Donovan Mitchell. We know what a stud he is. We know what Mike Conley can do. But Mike Conley's been a veteran. We were talking about him potentially retiring. This brother looks great. He looks better than he did last year.
He looked bad last year.
He looks better than he did last year. He looks better. You don't see that usually with veterans. I mean, you could literally, he was so bad last year, you could make an argument Mike Conley come back player of the year. I mean, that's how good he looks right now. Okay? So I'm looking at all of these things.
Doubt.
And I just want to take a moment before I say what I'm going to say to give the Utah Jazz coaching staff a hell of a lot of love, because they really, really deserve it. Having said that, I still don't give a damn. I ain't jumping off the Brooklyn bandwagon yet. When I sit up there and I look at last night, for example, and I see how the Lakers had no answer, let's just say that is the least of my concerns when it comes to the Brooklyn Nets offense. I ain't worried about them. I ain't worried about them offensively. You might try to outscore them. You're going to have to figure out something. Let's see what Royce O'Neal does when Kyrie is on the perimeter, or James Harden. Let's see what Rudy Gobert does when Kevin Durant is on the perimeter somewhere. Because you got to remember, Brooklyn don't have to play around with Utah in the interior. Brooklyn can sit up there and shoot you out of the gym without even sniffing in Rudy Gobert's direction. And DeAndre
Yeah, but Utah
Jordan,
can too.
And by the way, with DeAndre Jordan's age-old self, the brother still got hops. He's got size on him. He's got strength. You can't just push him around. And Rudy Gobert, it wouldn't be that easy for Rudy Gobert to go against him. I'm just saying, as great as the Jazz look, and they look phenomenal, I'm still not willing to say they look better than the Brooklyn Nets right now. Basketball operations, Danny Ainge has been making the rounds locally, talking about the team. He tried not to point the finger at Brad Stevens, but he did highlight that he believes that this team is talented enough, that they're about winning, that the situation right now is unacceptable. He expected better from them. He believes he's got a roster that mandates they should be better than how they have looked. You've got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, two young stars in this league. No doubt hold on the ball a little bit too long, which will explain why they're 28th out of 30 teams in the NBA in terms of assists. They're just not passing the ball and distributing the ball with the fluidity that they need to do it. And we all get that. But in the end, maybe they're not doing it because they don't have faith in the people around them, because they don't believe in what's transpiring as we speak. This certainly is not a problem that they had in the past. Why the hell would they have it now? They're having it now because they don't believe in the people around them, or they don't believe in the system that Brad Stevens has implemented. And Brad Stevens, like I said before, I think he's a damn good coach. He knows his X's and O's. I thought it was a tremendous hire on Danny Ainge's part years ago to grab him from the University of Butler, where he took them, a small school, to back-to-back national title game appearances. I have tremendous respect for Brad Stevens, and I hope it works out for him. But I think last night in that post-game conference, the things that you saw him say and the manner in which he spoke, if you cover Brad Stevens, and people, Max, in Boston would be more apt and more qualified to speak about this than me, but I dare venture to say I've never seen him come across that way. He came across as somebody who's thoroughly concerned about what's transpiring. And Danny Ainge alluded to this as well. He spoke to a lack of effort. Let me tell y'all something right now. In all my years of covering sports, anytime an executive speaks about lack of effort, that is an indictment against the coach.
Look out.
There is no way around it. When they say it's a lack of effort, that is the coach's job. The coach's job is to make sure that the one thing you never say is that his teams don't look like they're playing hard. They don't look like they care enough. It doesn't look like it matters to them as much as it should. Even though those exact words were not used, because I don't have the quote from Danny Ainge right in front of me, I can assure you what I heard him say alluded to those things. That is when a coach is in trouble, because I'm here to tell you something right now. They had a chance to get James Harden before he was traded to Brooklyn. The Houston Rockets, I'm telling you what my sources told me, the Houston Rockets wanted Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. Danny Ainge wasn't trying to hear that, because Danny Ainge believes that what he has is good enough to compete for a championship. I personally interviewed Jaylen Brown on my SportsCenter show with Stephen A. at the beginning of the season. What was he talking about? Championship expectations, nothing less. And here they are, a game below 500. It is unacceptable. They are better than that. Regardless of Kemba's situation and Marcus Smart's situation, they are better than a 500 team, and they are one game below 500. That is unacceptable. Brad Stevens knows it. Danny Ainge knows it. And even though Danny Ainge tried to point the finger at himself in the end, we know he don't mean that. We know what he means. He's talking about Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens could be in trouble if he doesn't get this steered in the right direction. But I'm rooting for him to do so, because I really like him, and I really think he's a good coach. But you got to be able to galvanize the troops and make sure you peel out of them what's inside of them if you're a head coach and being a leader of men. And this year, that has not shown to be the case. I think he's in trouble.
Before I respond to you, you said SportsCenter with Stephen A. And when and where can we find that, Stephen A?
Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ESPN. My SportsCenter show, my NBA
7
show.
p.m. Eastern Standard,
Yes,
SportsCenter with Stephen A.
Yeah.
Right, just
Not
wanted
Stephen
to make
A's
sure
world.
in case someone was wondering.
Not Stephen A's World, Monday, Tuesday,
No, that's
Thursday, and
different. That's
Fridays on ESPN
ESPN
Plus.
Plus.
Sports Center with Stephen A. on Wednesdays on ESPN. Yes. Most Wednesdays.
Gotcha. There you go. The question is, should Brad Stevens be on the hot seat? I agree with your analysis that's exactly right. Nail on the head. You hear the GM start talking about effort, that's already a problem for the coach. The water's starting to get hot, if not boiling. I'm not saying whether or not he is. I'm saying, should Brad Stevens be on the hot seat? No, he shouldn't be on the hot seat. This is much more on Danny Ainge than Brad Stevens. Danny Ainge has not been able to get this team over the hump. He's had plenty of talent. He's very good at collecting talent and putting together a winning situation. He has not been very good at getting them over the top to win a championship. And he's had chances. It's one time that they got a big three together in the absence of any other big three in the league, and they won one. That's it. Otherwise, and I think Danny Ainge is an excellent executive, but there are levels. And this is much more on him. Stephen A., just what I said about the Lakers applies to the Celtics here. No AD, but also no Schroeder, right? Your team needs someone, usually in the backcourt, who can go get their own shot when they need to. They can just create. They can create for others. They can create for themselves, get you into the offense. And who's missing on the Celtics right now? Kemba Walker's got a jacked up knee. He has not been the same. Like a couple of games here and there, he showed flashes. This ain't Kemba Walker. And Marcus Smart literally isn't on the floor. And Marcus Smart is interesting because you don't think of him as like the classic point guard and creative offensively and everything. But he is a point guard, right? Like that is a position he plays on the court. And when you talk about effort and diving for loose balls, that's also Marcus Smart. So you really don't have the heart and soul of your team right now, and you also don't have one of your three best offensive players in Kemba, and you don't have either of your best two ball handlers, creators. Now, so when you talk about Brad Stevens, should people look at him and be critical? Of course. Everyone's always evaluated, Brad Stevens included. Do I think that they run too many ISOs? Yes, I do. I know they have players who can go get theirs, but I think it's too many ISO sets. Do I think they could start Time Lord, right, at the 5 and play him 30-plus minutes as the starting 5? I like Tice, but yes, I do. I think he can do things better, in my opinion. And probably some of the things I think are wrong, too, right? There's always second-guessing and evaluation. But I can't pin this team right now on the guy who's trying to coach them without his backcourt. I got to look at the GM. I got to look at the GM and roster construction, which, as you said, he thought they could compete. There's a difference. In the NBA, Stephen A., if you want to win a championship, if you're thinking this team can compete, you don't have a chance. You need overwhelming offensive firepower. And if Kemba's not right, the Celtics don't have anything close to that.
Max Kellerman, I respectfully, let me explain to you why I think you're totally wrong on this. We're not having a conversation about Brad Stevens and his level of competence. The man has won 56% of his games. This is his 8th season in Boston. He's won 56% of his games. He's been to the playoffs the last 6-7 years. They've gone to the conference finals 3 of the last 4 years, including last year. Brad Stevens can coach. That's not the issue here. The issue is that do you get to a point where the same voice no longer affects you positively? If Brad Stevens lost his job today as head coach of the Boston Celtics, Brad Stevens should be one of the people at the top of the list for a new coaching job on the NBA or the collegiate level. He's that good. And so this is not about that. This is about the fact that you do get to a point where there's a new voice needs to be heard. In an extreme manner, Max, there came a point in time where Dallas needed to move beyond Tom Landry. There came a point in time where the Miami Dolphins needed to move beyond Don Shula. There's going to come a point in time where San Antonio might want to move beyond Greg Popovich. Can't see that anytime soon, but it's possible. Larry Brown had that day. There are coaches that have that time. Chuck Daly, even though he departed from Detroit on his own accord, bottom line, he ended up in Orlando. Sometimes it's just a new voice. And what I'm saying to you is that with Jaylen Brown, 24, approaching 25 years of age, and Jason Tatum at about 21, 22 years of age, and being young studs, they're kind of old around Brad Stevens. And what I mean by that is same voice, nothing fresh, nothing new. And if you're Danny Ainge, as an executive, you have to look at that because the issue is they're not even a 500 team. That's the issue. And if it's that bad, why is it that bad? Why do we look that bad? And then Kemba Walker's not there and Marcus Smart. This is basketball. Two dudes who are studs can have you playing above 500. The New York Knicks don't have either one of them. They got a similar record. Why? Because Thibodeau is a fresh voice that they needed, and they surrounded him with the right culture, and as a result, that's what you're looking at right now. I'm not saying I'm not bragging. I'm being serious. I'm not bragging about the Knicks. There's nothing to brag about yet. But it's a culture change. And sometimes you got to take into consideration the culture change is what we're talking about rather than the competence of the coach.
You got it on that one. You got the same record as the Knicks. It's a problem. You got the same record as the Knicks. That's a problem. I'm just looking at Ainge and you're looking at Stevens. But, the same record as the Knicks. P.U.
Yeah. No, it's
a great tight end you can move around and give him a tremendous weapon. Help out a young kid like Denzel Mims out of Baylor, second-round pick last year, who looked really good at times. So I think when you look at the supporting cast that Sam's had, it's been bad. And now it can be a lot better with Kyle Pitts. You have a lot of draft choices the Jets do to be able to fix the offensive line, get a wide receiver to help out Pitts as well, add a running back, get a pass rusher, get a corner. A lot of areas that Joe Douglas, GM, has to fix and get better. And a great starting point would be Kyle Pitts, like I say, to help out Sam Darnold.
I understand that, Mel Kiper Jr., and far be it for me to question your greatness, your expertise. I don't like to do that. At least not on weekdays. I like to call into your show on Saturdays to do that. But listen, Kyle Pitts, I like him. He could ball. I like what he did a little bit. But what I'm saying to you is this, Mel Kiper. If you're the New York Jets, you're trying to tell me you pass up a quarterback at number 2 to get a tight end? Come on, man. That doesn't seem to make any sense, Mel Kiper. It doesn't.
Well, Zach Wilson is all of a sudden John Elway. Zach had one great year, and I like Zach. But let's face it, Sam Darnold a few years ago was being talked like he was going to be a great quarterback, and everybody was destroying Josh Allen. And Sam Darnold was the one that was going to be spectacular. And no criticism of Sam. Sam had no chance. Okay, he's had to deal with the mono, other issues with the shoulder, and a terrible supporting cast in a division where Josh Allen really emerged because they handled him properly and they developed talent around him, okay? Add a Kyle Pitts. What helped Josh Allen? Stephon Diggs did, okay? Why not? Go get a Kyle Pitts, who's a enormous talent, who's a matchup nightmare. So that would be the starting point to get Darnold's the better weapons to allow Sam to really emerge when he's fully healthy. Fresh start, new people in place there, coaching staff. Why not Sam? I think Sam is a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. End of story.
Wow. I don't know. You get to reset the rookie wage. They don't come up in free agency. He hasn't really developed. You get more draft capital because you can trade him also. Whole lot of Mel.
I get you, Max. I get about the money. But you have to obviously look at Sam and say, did any quarterback have a chance in this environment? And I would say with the mono, with the injury, and the support. No, they did not. And this notion that all of a sudden I think Zach Wilson is better than Trevor Lawrence is ridiculous talk. I'm not even thinking about going there. I like Zach. I still have Justin Fields ahead of Zach Wilson. So to me, if I'm the Jets, I'm not giving up on Sam Darnold. I get the what's that?
That's where I was going.
So like the Jets could potentially trade down, get Justin Fields, get more draft capital, and put a team around him right away on restarting the rookie wage. Put a team around him right away with 2 firsts and more that you get from the Darnold trade and extra picks next year. Why wouldn't they do that if Justin Fields would slide?
We don't know what Justin Fields will be. I know what Sam Darnold is. So he's like, well, he's not that good. Well, I think he's shown enough to determine that he will be the guy to see what he can do and whether he deserves that second contract. I'm not all about the money, Max. I think it's all about getting the right quarterback. And we don't know what these rookies can do. From 2009 to 2016, 22 quarterbacks won in the first round. None are with the team that drafted them. Wentz was the last one to go. And Wentz should still be an Eagle, but he's not. This league's going crazy with quarterbacks. If you get a good one, you keep them. If you get a developing guy in Darnold, you keep them rather than a young quarterback you know nothing about. So if they don't like, hey, Max, I'm with you. If they don't like Sam, they know him better than anybody. Joe Douglas, if they feel like he's not the guy, fine. I'm saying personally what I would do, I would keep Sam, get Kyle Pitts, use those other draft choices to fill need areas, and be a much better football team that way.
Who are you? Are you listening to Mel Kiper Jr.? The patience, just the patience. Has New York not suffered enough? Here you are talking about a guy. Listen, I like Pitts. I like him a lot. I watched him in Florida. The brother can play. But you're talking, this is what you're saying, Mel Kiper. And this is, a huge fan of Mel Kiper Jr. I listen to him every chance I get. He's the godfather, the guru.
Here we go.
I get it. But I'm sitting there like this, yo. You're telling me that I need to move down, draft the tight end in New York City with the New York Jets. Ain't won a Super Bowl since 1969. We got a coach in Adam Gase. Thank God he's gone. He showed up to his press conference looking high. All right, we know how bad it was under his stewardship over the last couple of years. And now here you are, Mel Kiper, telling us, wait a minute, you draft this guy and then you can just develop and we can start anew. What about the notion, Mel Kiper Jr., that guess what? You could be so contaminated because of the situation that you were in over the last few years that we might need to start anew with somebody new and not you because you're just a reclamation project right now because of the damage that was inflicted upon you. What about that with Sam Darnold?
Not buying any of that stuff you're saying, Stephen A. For this reason, Sam Darnold is not broken because of anything except talent around him and the injury, the mono. He's competitive. He wants to prove the doubters wrong. He's good friends with Josh Allen. He's with Josh. Hey, a few years ago they were bashing Josh. He's terrible. He'll never be any good. And Sam's the man, right? Well, I think Sam still can be the man. And to your point about Kyle Pitts, don't just say, he's a tight end. He's everything. He's a receiver, tight end. He's a receiving entity. He's a great player. You're giving up the second best player in this draft to make a sideways move at quarterback with Zach Wilson. At best, a sideways move. Okay. To me, and then you lose Kyle Pitts. So you get Zach, you part company with Sam, you lose Kyle Pitts. I would rather keep Sam, make the move, get Kyle Pitts, who I think is going to be spectacular in this league. What would the Chiefs be without Travis Kelce? Okay, Travis Kelce's a tight end who can do a lot of things. He's not just a tight end. That's what Kyle Pitts can become.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Mel, I want to get on real quick because we don't have a lot of time. What was interesting to me was the Patriots trading up to 9 and grabbing Trey Lance. That's really interesting to me. You know, not playing against the best competition, but gets rid of the ball quick and doesn't turn the ball over. That is a Belichick kind of quarterback, and he's dynamic.
Great talent, Max, and that's what you're rolling the dice on. One start this year, and it was not impressive throwing the ball. He was at 50% against Central Arkansas. He only has started 17 games in his career. He's only 20 years of age, arguably the youngest player in this draft. He beat a lot of teams at the 1AA level with his legs, okay? Arm is outstanding. I think the accuracy at times is a little off, but that can improve in the NFL. Level of competition, obviously a concern. I wish he would have played the full year, but didn't have that opportunity. He only played the one game, but I think Trey Lance is a guy you roll the dice on in terms of talent. And where he could have been with another year, he might have been the #1 pick in the 2022 draft.
I know this much. I mean, all I got to think about is Carson Wentz in the year that he just had in North Dakota State. I'm not sure. Talk to me real quick about Mac Jones. I mean, I watched this dude win a national title. I mean, he's got some skills at the quarterback position. How come Bill Belichick wouldn't take somebody like him? Would he be gone already in your estimation?
Had him at 8 to Carolina. Matt Rule had him at the Senior Bowl. I thought about having New England jump over Carolina and take him. Didn't make that move, but you're right. The Belichick-Saban connection is real. Mac Jones is what Brady was. Now, he's not going to be Brady, but he's that type of quarterback style-wise. So I think certainly what you say, Max and Stephen A., makes sense. Mac Jones to New England could be a strong possibility. But like I say, Carolina's going to get a quarterback, and Matt Rule had him in Mobile that week.
Nick Saban told Nick Saban, I got to talk to Nick Saban. I'll talk to Molly. I got to talk to Nick Saban about what we going to do about Mac Jones. Because Alabama has to represent top 10. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and let's not forget, guys, the Patriots were the team most impacted by opt-outs. They had 8 players who opted out last season.
Way you haven't seen in a long time.
There he is, Louis Riddick, making bold predictions. Bill Belichick versus everybody. I'm with it. Stephen A., do you agree with Louis here that Bill's going to go scorched earth?
No, I think that he'll have that kind of attitude. He's Bill Belichick and he's great, but it don't mean a damn thing if he don't have a quarterback. Louis Riddick can sit up there and talk about Bill Belichick all he wants to with the 8 championships and 6 as a head coach. You understand? But last time I checked, Bill Belichick can't go out on the field, kneel behind center, drop back, and throw the damn football from the quarterback position. He has to hope somebody can do it for him. Now, Bill Belichick being the genius that he is, and no one would dare question that. His coaching resume speaks for itself, and I would never try to impugn that because he's phenomenal. But the bottom line is that you can put dudes in the right place to win all the time. They've got to execute. Who's going to execute? That's the question mark. I'm quite sure Bill Belichick sees things before they do. Doesn't matter. Can't stop them from seeing what they see. Can't stop them from doing what they do. You can do your best, but ultimately it doesn't work. Now, obviously, when we look at the Patriots last year, you had 8 dudes that called out for the season because of COVID-19. They didn't want to participate. And I think that had a devastating impact, which is why I think that Bill Belichick did a damn good job last year. And he's not to be, he's not to be insulted in any way. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is this. I don't want to hear about Bill Belichick and Scorcher. You mad. You mad. Well, hell, when have you looked happy? I don't recall Bill Belichick looking happy much. Okay, unless it's on Championship Sunday after winning the Super Bowl. That day, but all of those days preceding that day, he never looked happy any damn way. So what Louis Riddick is saying doesn't mean much to anybody else. Bill Belichick always looks that way. He always looks like he's ready to go scorched earth. He always looks motivated and unhappy and a bit truculent and acerbic and all of those other words that you want to throw out. It don't make a damn bit of difference. At the end of the day, that man needs a quarterback. He needs a quarterback, and the GM, that's Bill Belichick, needs to get whatever quarterback he chooses weapons to actually throw the football to. That's what he needs. All of that scorched earth stuff don't mean nothing. Don't mean a thing.
Well, I agree about the quarterback because the league has favored quarterbacks in the passing game to the point where it's a little less about coaching and a little more about talent than it used to be, I think, in the NFL, especially on offense. But I'm with Louis Riddick on this one. Louis, I'm with you. Bill Belichick, first of all, look what he was working with last year. 8 guys off the team to start the season who opted out because of COVID, including Hightower and Chung. Gilmore missed a bunch of games. I mean, these are the best defensive players they got. And they didn't have anything on offense. Name one offensive player that the Patriots had that another team would want to start on their team. Name one guy. You have any tight ends or wideouts that people are like, yeah, I want that guy? Or running backs? Not a single guy. So they had nothing on offense. And now they have a quarterback rehabbing off a catastrophic injury who just missed a year. And Stephen A., you religiously say, not a thrower of the football really ever at an elite level, right? With that dude, who then himself got COVID. So now you got a new quarterback in a totally new system, the exact opposite of the guy you just had, rehabbing from an injury, missed a year, got to learn a new system, and you can't practice. You're missing your whole defense, and you can't practice. And then that dude gets COVID. So now you got to not only miss the quarterback, and it lingers, right, the effects of COVID on his play, but you got to shut down the facilities. You can't even walk through stuff. It's impossible. Now, Louis, in spite of all this, the reason I'm with you, they won 7 games. They beat the Ravens. They beat Arizona. They beat the Raiders. They beat Miami. They came a play away from beating Buffalo and a play away from beating Seattle. So, yes, do I think, given a full preseason, given another year to get it together without opt-outs, Bill Belichick is going to come back and have a great year? Yes, I do.
Yeah, look, I think early on this past season, he understood. He saw what the writing on the wall was going to be. And whereas he was never coaching to just get through this season, I think he also understood that 2021 is when he was going to make his return, where he was going to have a bunch of cap space. He knew that he had to address quarterback, but he knew then he could kind of really restock the coverage for this football team. And I can tell you this, late in the season, talking to him during Monday night production meetings, there was a palpable sense of just frustration and disgust at how he wasn't able to get his team to play the way he was accustomed to getting it playing. And I've heard that. I've heard that sound in his voice before. I heard it when I was sitting in the amphitheater in Cleveland, in Berea, in the football facility when we weren't playing up to our potential. And I know how he comes out firing and with a renewed sense of urgency when he's feeling that way. Now, Stephen A., you're right. It isn't going to matter unless he goes ahead and addresses the quarterback position. And this is where I think you're going to see a change. And this isn't him saying it. This is me just predicting this or kind of forecasting this. I think you're going to see a change with which he approaches this offseason with a greater sense of urgency instead of sitting back and letting everything come to him, which is what he has had the liberty of doing, given the fact that he is who he is. They've had the success that they've had. And people basically said, well, if you want to win championships, just go to New England. I don't think anybody necessarily looks at it that way anymore, especially with number 12 not being there anymore. I think you're going to see a different approach as far as I'm going to be much more aggressive now. And number one, I know I got to take care of this quarterback position. And I know I've got to get us some wideouts on the perimeter, and this is the perfect year to do it. Number 1 in free agency and number 2 in the draft. And I see you, Stephen A. I see you out of the corner of my eye. I see you sitting there like this. All I'm saying is this. His approach is going to be different. Hold on, let me finish this. His approach is going to be different. It's going to be different. It's going to be much more aggressive. And Max, as you point out, look, with a roster that was just depleted last year, he still had people on the ropes over and over again until late in the season where he just couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't do it with smoke and mirrors anymore. It's going to be a big year for him. Just mark my words. It's going to be a big year.
Fine. It's going to be a good year. Let me talk to you about something, Mr. Chippendales.
No, I didn't say a good year. I said a big year.
Let me talk to you about something. I got you a big year. A big year. Let me talk to you about something, Mr. Chippendales. All right.
Yeah.
You know, smooth daddy. Yeah. Got the collar open. You macking. I got it. And you've been chilling. Clearly, you were chilling a little bit too much. Now, I thought you did a fantastic job on Monday Night Football, but clearly you were chilling a little bit too much when it came to Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick sat back and let things come to him. Bill Belichick sat back and said, let me just let things come to me. Stop it.
You missed the context with which I said that, Stephen A. You missed the context with which I just said that. In the offseason, Bill plays the patient game. He plays the long game better than anybody. He always has. But this year his approach is going to have to be different. See, you know what?
Not with wide receivers.
That's
not true.
Okay, well, I'm saying, listen, I'm saying overall he plays the long game better than everyone. Because of the fact that he doesn't like to delve into free agency the first 24, 48 hours, he understands that that the time with which you make these transactions is critical. First 24 to 48 hours, players have all the leverage. That's where the worst deals are made. I think Bill's going to be a player early on. I think it's going to be one of these situations where he's going to have to be aggressive and recruit and get people to come to New England and not have people just saying, you know what? If we want to win, what I'm saying is I think the approach is going to be much different.
Are you willing to admit that Bill Belichick, the GM, not the coach, not the great coach, Bill Belichick, the GM, has been subpar? Bill Belichick, the GM, has dropped the ball. Are you willing to admit that? And maybe it wasn't because he laid back. Maybe because it was arrogance, because he was like, yeah, damn it, I'm Bill Belichick. This ain't about Tom Brady. I know what the hell I'm doing. Is that possible?
You know what? I think that's entirely possible. I think it's entirely possible that, you know what? Hey, look, this is a guy who's won everything there is to win in football. There's no question. I think that at some point in times, I'm sure he's a human being. I'm sure he feels as though, look, I've seen it all. I've had the answers to it all. And maybe he did drop it down a gear or two to where it wasn't up to his normal standard. That's where I'm saying this. This year, the way it played out, the frustration I heard in his voice, his quarterback that he drafted, his program developed, they won all those championships together, leaves, goes to a different organization. Everyone's saying, and look, it's pretty obvious right there in front of our face. This guy's having fun. This guy's living, he's on boats. He's living in Derek Jeter's house. Bruce Arians is saying, I'm letting him coach. Tom's doing his own thing. And Bill's sitting there going, okay. So now everybody's going, well, maybe it wasn't Bill. Maybe we should go down here to Tampa and play with Tom. Heck, Tom is the one who's drafted. Tom's the one who's deciding if AB's coming back, if Chris Godwin's coming back, if Shaq Barrett's going to get back.
Go ahead, Max.
I'm saying he's going to come back with a vengeance.
We heard you. I'm going to come back at you. Go ahead, Max.
This is the point. The point is, whether you like it or not, Tom Brady set himself up in Tampa. No doubt he set himself up to succeed, left the cupboard bare for Belichick, whatever. Tom Brady won the Super Bowl, year one. He didn't make the NFC Championship game. He won the Super Bowl. Went through Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes, won the Super Bowl. So now everyone's saying the Patriot way.
Yeah, he did.
That's actually the Tom Brady way. And whether we like it or not, whether you think it's true or not, the fact of the matter remains, Bill Belichick's got something to prove right now. Bill Belichick's got something to prove. He's nothing more to prove. Lewis, you said it. He's seen it all. No. He's got something to prove. The greatest coach of all time has got something to prove. That hasn't been the case in a very long time.
Are y'all ready for this, Lewis? May I impart, dare I say, may I impart some words of advice and wisdom to Bill Belichick? Can I do it, Lewis? Would you allow me to do that? Is Bill Belichick watching? Is Bill Belichick watching?
It's your show, man.
Are you ready for this? Are y'all ready for this, y'all? Tom Brady goes to Tampa, right? He's got the roster. He's got beautiful sunshine weather. He's got no state income taxes. maybe, just maybe, somebody needs to advise Bill Belichick, Louis Riddick, that being a bit, a stoic and dare I say a little truculent at times or whatever, why are you asking people to come to Foxborough, Massachusetts, where blizzards are just as normal as anything else? Maybe, just maybe, Bill Belichick, dare I say, Max Lewis, might need to modify his personality just a touch. Because instead of you saying, I'm Bill Belichick and we the New England Patriots and it's the Kraft family leading the way, maybe you need to think about bringing some sunshine to Foxborough, lighten it up a little bit. So Rob Gronkowski, because that's the key too. Remember, Rob Gronkowski was talking about it wasn't fun no more. He looked like he was having a lot of damn fun this last year in Tampa. Maybe, just maybe, Bill Belichick, you might need, an old dog might need to be taught a few new tricks. Learn to enjoy life a little bit. And make sure those players do the same.
Hey,
dare I say that's possible?
That's
you know
not
what?
what Cam Newton
you know
said.
what?
He just needs some more horses.
I'm talking about to get the horses to come.
You know what? I will say this, though. I will say this, though, Stephen A. I will say this, though, okay? Talking to him this year, he sounds different. Okay, this is a guy who right now, who obviously he knows he's much closer to the end of his career than he is to the beginning. And he, like I said, there's nothing for him to prove. But as Max says, there's something for him to prove. And I think this will be a comprehensive reevaluation of what he needs to do in today's day and age. You know, Nick Saban told me this too. When I talked to Nick, and I've heard Nick talk about this as far as how he changed his recruiting process down there at Alabama. Because, look, he's the same way. He's cut from the same cloth. I played for them both. I know they're almost one and the same, all right? And Nick said this. In recruiting, I had to change the way I approach some of these kids. Because in today's day and age, look, the kids want to know about this. What's good for me first? Tell me how this helps me to come to Alabama. Tell me how this helps me. Don't jam all this team stuff down my throat. Tell me what Alabama can do for me. And then Nick says, you know what, that's fine. I'll sell that to you. Because in the end, we're all going to benefit anyway when you buy into ultimately what you see that I can do for you. I think for Bill, although the professional level is different, I think the way in which he goes about recruiting certain players to come to his place because of the fact that Tampa Bay isn't Foxborough, we all know that. But I think players overall look at things much differently now. They value things a little bit differently now. And some of the shine has come off the Patriot way. I think that's obvious. So I think you're going to see his approach change both in terms of his aggressiveness and the way in which he recruits people. And I'll tell you this. I can't wait till 2021 training camp rolls around because you best believe this. I'm going to make that drive to Foxborough. I'm going to make that drive up there. I think this team is coming out firing.
Yes, I think it's the right place. Where do I think Watson winds up? I think Miami if they want him. I don't think anyone can compete with Miami in the package they can offer him. I think the Bears are actually the best long-term play, and I'll tell you why. And this is why I brought this up like in the beginning of January. The Chicago Bears and that fan base are as rabid as any football fan base in the world. Guys, just remember going back to the 80s, that Saturday Night Live skit, maybe it was the early 90s, right? The Bears, remember all that? That was in the middle of Michael Jordan's prime. He was three-peating every time you turned around. But all they could talk about in popular culture was the Bears because Chicago cares more about that than anything else. Than anything. And this franchise, the Bears, who have the greatest team of all time, the 85 Bears, have never gotten quarterback right my entire life. I'm not from Chicago, but, in my entire life. But wait, the Bears are crazy about football. They're one of the original football franchises, and the 85 Bears never gotten the quarterback right. Jay Cutler's probably like the third best quarterback they've ever had in my lifetime. Jay Cutler. They've never gotten it right. And they're Super Bowl starved. Stephen A., if you win a Super Bowl in Chicago, oh my God, it's a whole new level of like the kind of icon you become in the American popular consciousness and the sports consciousness. And then from Deshaun Watson's point of view, so like that's a huge incentive for Watson, you would think. He could become an icon unlike other players who are playing today if he could become a champion in Chicago. From Chicago's point of view, obviously you want Deshaun Watson, you get quarterback right, but you also get to run back that draft where you messed it up with Trubisky. You passed on Watson. No, you get Deshaun Watson back. Stephen A., if they get Deshaun Watson, they put a few offensive line pieces together, that team would be ready to win now with that defense. It makes a whole lot of sense.
I love Chicago's defense. It's a damn shame that they've been subjected to Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles over the last season or two. You wish that they were better offensively because that defense is real. It's just that your offense does nothing for you, and ultimately you get tired from being overexposed, having to be on the field to cover for the mistakes that they make or the inefficiencies that they put forth, and as a result, the defense suffers. I get that, but you, Deshaun Watson, you can't be thinking about going to no damn Chicago. You can't be. Don't even think about it. He's got a no trade clause. I mean, he's got a say in where the hell would you go. Listen, I like Allen Robinson. I do. David Montgomery is a 1,000-yard rusher. He's not a scrub. Tyreek Cohen, I'm a fan of his. Yep. All right, I get all of that. All right. These are not all world players, but they can ball. They can ball. They're respectable. It's too damn cold in Chicago to be going there, Max. Are you crazy? You can't be Deshaun Watson and go to the Windy City. What's wrong with y'all? Oh no.
Thinking about Chicago.
I happen to know that Deshaun Watson watches me. He watches me on First Take. He watches me on Stephen A's World. He sees what I do. Listen, Deshaun Watson, do not think about going to Chicago. Max Kellerman, let me tell you something. Chicago is a marvelous city. I love Chicago. Chicago has been very, very good to me. I must admit, but I got to tell you something. That's from June to September. Come October, all the way through May. It's too damn cold. You can't have Deshaun Watson going there. I mean,
it's too hot in the summer.
At Soldiers Field, Max, this man can actually throw a football, and that bad boy might wave into the fans. The wind might take it right there. It might take it right to Lake Michigan. You don't know that. You can't be in that kind of situation. You can't expose yourself to, especially when you got options like Miami, potentially, San Francisco, potentially, even though that cold weather coming out of the Bay in the Pacific Ocean ain't no joke either. Plus, you got great whites and all of that stuff in there, but that's a different subject for another day. I'm just saying. I'm thinking about New York, media capital of the world. I'm thinking about Miami. Miami's number one. That's the number one option. You can't have options like that or Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco with George Kittle and Deebo Samuels and those boys and decide to go to the Windy City. He can't do that.
If
stay
you
the
go to
hell away from Chicago.
San Francisco's more ready to win.
You're a quarterback. Stay the hell away from Chicago.
San Francisco's more ready to win. No argument there. And it's an excellent spot for Deshaun if he winds up there. No one can compete with Miami. Miami, no state income tax, warm weather, team that's ready to win, et cetera. Miami wins that.
Worried about the weather and this and that. How about when? I'm going to start with you here, Kendrick. I'm going to switch things up.
Molly,
go ahead.
Molly,
Yeah.
Before you start, all right, let me just say this. Vucevic, because it tickled Stephen A. yesterday because I couldn't get it out. But this ain't no damn English class anyway. We talking basketball, so sometimes I may mess up names, but I was working on it last night. Vucevic. I got it. All right, there we go.
Yeah. Some of those Eastern European names.
I
appreciate you putting in the effort, and making it happen. Don't worry, Stephen A. still can't say my last name. He's still working on it. We're on year 10 right now.
Rose.
All right, you're up. Yeah, you can say Rose. That's great. Max got it. Are you giving the Lakers a pass for last night, Perk?
Yeah. You got to give them a pass. Look, let's not overreact to these 4 losses, and let's not overreact to them losing to the best team in basketball, which is the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz is putting everybody over their lap right now and giving them a spanking, especially when they go into Salt Lake City. Let us all remember, yes, I know Anthony Davis is out, but they are missing Dennis Schroeder, who is a huge part of this team and the Lakers' success. The only guy besides LeBron James that is able to create for himself and create for others. Here's another thing. When you're the defending champs, being a former champ myself, every team is going to give you their best shot every single night. And right now, the Lakers they're not at full strength, and they got to be prepared to get everybody best shot. And last night, going into that Utah game, I knew they were going to lose. I thought they probably would have beat by 50. due to not having Dennis Schroeder and how great of a team the Utah Jazz are. But here's the thing. This right here proved me wrong because I gave Rob Pelinka so much credit and said that the Lakers won in the offseason, but this has been a blessing in disguise for everyone, including the Lakers, because right now we're seeing that their role players are really not like that. This is our audition for them, and it's time for them to upgrade even more. Go out there and add more shooting. Maybe you could go get a guy like AJ Redick. And they miss JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. Much respect to Marcus Gasol, but he's not it right now. Well, he can't guard pick and rolls. He's not a live threat at the rim. So you may have to go out and try to get a Hassan Whiteside or Andre Drummond. I knew going into that game last night that the Lakers were going to lose because they're shorthanded and Utah is a great team. So, yes, I am giving them a pass.
I'm not giving them a pass. And the reason why I'm not giving them a pass is because of what I saw from them defensively. Utah is a great team. They move the basketball exceptionally well. They're exceptionally well coached. I certainly can understand why the Lakers have problems offensively, but defensively, I'm going to look at them. They got blown out last night. And oh, by the way, in 9 of their last 10 games, they've given up at least 104 points. And they've been giving up triple digits on the regular over the last 9 to 10 games or so. So I'm looking at things from that perspective, and I think it's about effort. Certainly, offensively, you're going to have your struggles, and I totally understand it. And there are adjustments that Frank Vogel has to make until Rob Pelinka can get him some more help in the trade or whatever the case may be before the trading deadline expires specifically. We can deal with all of those things. But I'm just looking at things from an effort standpoint on the defensive side of the ball. I certainly don't expect them to look but so bad. I don't expect to witness wide open shots. I don't expect the interior to look like a layup line. I don't expect those kind of things. I expect more from the Lakers in that regard. And that's all I mean. It's nothing to be overly alarmed about. We understand the loss of Anthony Davis and Dennis Schroeder is significant. We get that. I definitely agree with you, Big Perk, that Pelinka and those boys got to go out because of the audition that these guys have been going through. A lot of them aren't measuring up to snuff. All of that's true. But Frank Vogel is a head coach in the National Basketball Association because of what he preaches and what he teaches on the defensive side of the ball. And I didn't see much of that last night, and that was my issue.
Of course the Lakers get a pass for last night. Look, Perk said it. They're on the road against the hottest, if not best team in basketball right now. If you had to say at this moment, not who you think's going to win the chip, anything, at this moment, who's the best team? It's Utah. They have replaced the Lakers since the AD injury as the only elite team on both ends of the floor. They're absolutely elite on both ends of the floor. And when you look at this roster, everywhere you look, there's a dude who makes a real positive contribution. Mike Conley's like an ideal point guard. Donovan Mitchell is a star and a bona fide superstar when you need him most. And even the fact that Ingles isn't starting, he's off the bench. And you have Royce O'Neal. They're like mirror images of each other, both competent on both sides of the floor. But Ingles is versatile offensively and good defensively, whereas Royce O'Neal is versatile defensively and good enough offensively. But O'Neal's defense is ridiculous, and he can really shoot the three. You look at every position, there's someone who's really making a positive contribution. Obviously, Gobert, rolling to the basket, and the defense is there. Everywhere you look, they got a guy. So that's the Jazz right now. They're firing on all cylinders. Stephen A., you called out the coaching staff by name to give them their props, not just Quinn Snyder. I totally agree. They're a well-coached team being compared to the Spurs from several years ago, the way they move the ball, play unselfishly, the whole thing. And the Lakers, Perk hit it again. I brought it up at the top of the show. AD's gone. You're top heavy. You got two superstars. They make the role players better. One of those dudes is gone. But then also your third best player is gone. And Schroeder is the only guy other than LeBron. What I say earlier, he can not only get his own shot, but he can create for others. I know Taylor Horton Tucker's trying to do his thing. He can get his own shot, but is he really the guy who's going to be creating for others? So the Lakers are right now dead in the water against a team that's setting records, hitting threes every night. What are they supposed to do?
Big Perk, I'll be the first to admit, man, I'm kind of spoiled in this regard. When I was a beat writer for the Philadelphia 76ers covering Allen Iverson and the crew, Allen Iverson was your lone offensive force. The George Lynch, the Eric Snows, the Aaron McKees, the Kevin Tumbles of the world, the people like that, they could give you buckets every now and then, but the bottom line is they were basically a defensive-minded team. You knew that there were limitations offensively, but what Larry Brown, the great Larry Brown, the Hall of Famer that is Larry Brown, taught me is that when you have effort on the defensive end of the floor, you'd be surprised what you can do. And you may not always win, but you're always going to be in it. And when I see the Lakers give up 39 points in the second quarter and I see them basically bow out that early, that's what I'm looking at here when I'm talking about effort. I'm not looking at things just schematically. I'm not looking at just talent. I'm looking at the fact that you know what the circumstances and the situation is walking in to that particular encounter and what you've been looking at since you knew Anthony Davis would be out over the last 10 games. And I'm watching you defensively wilt. And that's what I'm keeping my eyes on because I think a lot of that is about effort more so than anything else. And I'm not talking about LeBron James because he don't owe us that. He gives what he's got, okay, and he needs help. But you got to help him.
Yeah, and look, Stephen A., that's a great point. But I'm going to say this. Last night game, it was just that the Utah Jazz, that young group, Donovan Mitchell, Jordan Clarkson, Royce O'Neal, those guys are just more athletic. Youth legs. Like Kyle Kuzma, Caldwell Pope, Wesley Matthews. It's nothing that they could have done with those guys last night. And I get what you're saying. It was times where the Lakers had lapses on the defensive end. I kept wondering to myself, how many times are they going to keep giving up lobs to Rudy Gobert and Derek Favors at the basket? But that's just a testament to how good and how dangerous the Utah Jazz is. And look, you brought up a good point earlier in the show when I was watching. The Utah Jazz are shooting 42 threes a game, and they're hitting 40% of them. I mean, you got to honor the three because they are lighting it up. And with that, you have a dynamic guy in Donovan Mitchell who has took a tremendous leap from last year. I'm not talking about him being able to get buckets. We know he all could score the basket. I'm talking about now he has taken that next step to superstar. What the great KG used to always tell me, you know how you could superstars separate themselves is when they start making others around them better. And that's what he's doing right now.
Jordan
This Utah Jazz team is just serious.
Jordan Clarkson is six-man candidate of the year. Jordan Clarkson looks better than I've ever seen him look.
He's right. He's actually
Anything
excellent
is possible.
now. Not just
Shout
scoring for a bad
All right,
team.
let's
He's
go
an
to the
excellent
Celtics,
player.
guys. Big Perk, I asked the guys this earlier in the show. The Celtics have been struggling. They've lost 8 of 11. They were trailing at the half 72-49, went to lose by 15 to the Hawks. Perk, you think Brad Stevens should be on the hot seat right now?
Hell yeah, he should be on the hot seat. And look, here's the sensitive subject for me because you know how embedded I am with the Boston Celtics and the city of Boston. You know, that's my home away from home. But yes, because I'm watching this Celtic team and they lack accountability. When you have an old guy, old veteran like Gallinari who lights you up for 38 points last night, and I'm not taking nothing away from him because he still can shoot the ball, but you have enough athletic wings in Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Shimmy Ojale, Grant Williams to actually go out there and guard him, and they're not doing it. It shows me that Brad Stevens is just getting walked over. They talking about, oh, it's not Brad Stevens. That's not his demeanor. He's not a guy that hollers. Then what the hell are you here for if you're not going to hold guys accountable? I watched Jason Tatum last night and games before that. Oh, pout and complain to the referees. Take bad shot after bad shot. I watched Jaylen Brown not sprint back on defense. That's lack of accountability. That is coaching, not getting on their superstar players. And then to top it off, you watch a guy, and I love Tristan Thompson. I'm watching him catch the ball at the free throw line area. And he's trying to show everybody that he could go between his legs and take a guy off the dribble. That's lack of accountability, and that's saying I could do what I want as a role player. And that's disturbing. I'm watching Daniel Tice walk into three-pointers at the beginning of shot clocks. Soon as they cross half court, the ball swung his way. Instead of him going into a quick dribble handoff, he's stepping into a
Big Perk.
three-point shot.
Question for you, Big Perk. Brett, question for you, Big Perk. I'm going to give you my time because I want you. Question for you. If that was Doc Rivers instead of Brad Stevens, could you tell a national audience what would have happened if the stuff you pointed out was happening with Tatum and Tice and all of those? What would Doc Rivers have done?
If that was Doc Rivers, and what happened?
And those things that you just explained guys were doing on the basketball court with no accountability. If that was Doc Rivers, your coach in Boston when y'all won the title in 2008, when you went to the finals in a Game 7 in 2010, what would Doc Rivers have done if stuff like that was happening?
Oh, he would have met us at half court. He would have called timeout and would have met you at half court and got on you. I remember one time I called myself taking a free throw line jump shot. Doc subbed me out in the first 2 minutes of the game and told me, know your role, be a star in your role, and set me to the second half and put Big Baby in. But look, here's another thing. Guess what? If that was Doc Rivers right now coaching this team, this same team, minus Gordon Hayward that went to the Eastern Conference Finals, this Celtic team that we wouldn't be surprised, got high hopes to maybe come out of the Eastern Conference, he would be on the hot seat and people would be calling for his job. Hell, he might be fired by now. So don't give me all this. This is not Brad demeanor. What is he there for? What is he there for if he's not going to hold people accountable?
I would say this, Perk. I would say this. There's legitimate criticism of Brad Stevens. You know, like start with Robert Williams. Why isn't he starting at the 5? He should be starting, and they should ride him as long as they can for his defense.
No.
They should. Like there are things that I disagree with Brad Stevens here and there. Everyone can do a better job, and everyone's up for evaluation, including Brad Stevens. But the bottom line is, the Celtics kind of get a pass too, like the Lakers. Kemba Walker is not Kemba Walker. Hasn't been this season. Let's be honest. And they got 3 guys they get their offense from. And right now, I'm not making excuses for guys for not hustling. But Marcus Smart is the linchpin of the defense in that way. He's also the other guy who can handle in the backcourt. So you're missing 2 pieces that help your team go. The Celtics don't have the margin for error that other elite teams do. They can't have no real Kemba Walker and also not Marcus Smart.
No, Max.
And then also not get a good enough effort. I agree with, but
Max,
that's more roster construction than coaching.
They got their 2 all-stars. They got their 2 rising stars in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
They're supposed to have 3.
They have 0 excuses for being 2 games under 500 in the Eastern Conference.
Let me get in here. Max Kellerman, you're wrong. And the reason why you're wrong is because if we're sitting here and we're talking about a team that's winning, but they may not make it back to the conference finals, that's a different argument. We're talking about a Boston Celtics team that's under 500. There is no excuse for a team with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in the sport of basketball to be under 500. That is about the coach not having the pulse of the team. Because we know that Brad Stevens knows what he's doing. We know that he knows what he's doing from an X's and O's standpoint. They've been to the conference finals 3 times in the last 4 years. He's won 56% of his games. We know that he knows what he's doing. So what is it? There does come a point in time where you have to ask yourself the question, are you the voice in the ear of the player that can get them to maximize whatever potential they have? And what KP is pointing to, what Kendrick Perkins is pointing to, is a coach. Nobody's questioning his acumen. Nobody's questioning his competence. Nobody's questioning what his resume. What you're looking at right now is saying, are these players tuning him out? Danny Ainge is going around the public circuit in Boston talking about, we're not giving effort. We're not giving enough effort. When the executive of the team is talking about the effort of the players, without saying so, he is talking about the coach. Because that is the coach's job, to make sure that you are maxed out effort-wise. And that's not what's happening in Boston right now. And if it were anybody else, we'd say something.
That's fair, but guys, they have a couple of real good scoring wing guys, right? They run too many ISOs, and as I said, certain guys could be getting more minutes. The real issue is the guy who's really supposed to organize and coordinate the offense isn't really there in Kemba. It hasn't been Kemba this year. And the heart and soul of the defense is really Marcus Smart. And he's not there either. So you can point to Brad Stevens, and I'm not saying you're not making legitimate points. But before you do, I have to look at the roster. That's Danny Ainge. And I got to look at injuries.
Not if you're under 500. Not if you're under 500.
But Max, you gotta look at how the Celtics been playing. Look, 2 nights ago they played the New Orleans Pelicans. Okay, they were up 24 points, and the New Orleans Pelicans came and walked it down and had the best comeback in franchise and beat the Boston Celtics. Do you know the Celtics right now in 7 straight games have given up 30-plus points to individuals? So they're coming in and saying, you know what, we can get whatever the hell we want. And Max, on my side, away from ESPN, you know what I do, right, Max? I cover the Celtics game. I do the Celtics broadcast for the local network. So I got a close eye on them. I'm watching these rotations. I'm watching these guys not fight to get up over screens, not sprint back in transition, not boxing out, not closing out to a guy like
and not
Gallinari,
hearing anything from the coach.
letting him have a field day. That's what I'm saying. And that, to me, it's a repeated cycle, and they're not hearing whatever the hell Brad Stevens is talking about in the film room, period.
Are you ready for this, KP? Other than you know who's the most popular voice we hear critiquing the Boston Celtics? Cornbread Maxwell. That's what we're hearing. We ain't hearing from Brad Stevens. I mean, last night was the first time I've ever seen Brad Stevens look remotely demonstrative and concerned. Because guess what? He's starting to feel it now because enough noise is being made. But usually if you want to hear something that's wrong with the Boston Celtics, you need to look at Cedric Maxwell, Cornbread Maxwell. Call a game. Do a color on the games. That's who you need to look for. And now Kendrick Perkins. Because you damn sure wasn't getting it from Brad Stevens. You wasn't getting it from Danny Ainge. Where you been? And again, we know that Danny Ainge is an exceptional executive. We know that Brad Stevens is proven to be an executive. And you have the ear and the pulse of your players. If not, guess what? You could have traded Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart for James Harden. Houston wanted to do that. Boston did not. You wanted to keep the people in place because Danny Ainge believes, and I think rightfully so, he did the right thing by not letting go of Jaylen Brown because I think he's a stud. But if you believe in Jaylen Brown and you believe in Jason Tatum, you can't find under 500 ball acceptable, Max. You cannot do that.
Jaylen Brown's having his best season. I mean, let's look at the development of the players. I mentioned Robert Williams. They're missing both basically point guards on the team. And so they're a little under 500 in a division, in a conference that's gotten much better. So can Brad Stevens be doing more? Yeah, sure. As I mentioned, I pointed out a few things. But to use him as the fall guy right now, I don't think is right. I think roster construction, if I had to pick between Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens, Danny Ainge put the roster together. Danny Ainge was relying on all the offense from 3 dudes, and one of them's not there right now. He's hurt.
Yeah, but Max, I'm telling you this.
Let's keep it moving, guys.
They have more than enough, and they're not supposed to be 2 games under 500. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown has been there majority of the season.
They're finishing over 500.
Okay.
All right. Facts.
Marcus
Let's
Smart's
keep it rolling,
back.
guys. I said the Celtics lost 8 of 11. The Miami Heat have won 8 of 11, and that's where I want to go right now. Their 4th consecutive game after defeating the Toronto Raptors 116-108. Things looking good for Jimmy Buckets and the squad. Stephen A.,